Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the mystery of the missing bar at the end of Ravel's Piano Concerto for the left hand. Now, some of you may recall that I published a video review of the positively dreadful Alexandre Tarot recording of the Ravel Piano Concerto, including the left-hand Piano Concerto, which was just a bad record all around. But aside from that, it was missing a bar at the very end of the Ravel Piano Concerto. As you may know, the end goes jong, 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 chunk, then it goes chunk, bump, chunk, gunk, chunk, gunk, da 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 bum. Well, his chunk, bump, or whatever I call those things, chunk thunkas, chunk thunka, da 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 da, does that 3 times. He only does it twice. He goes chunk thunka, da 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 da. Well, if you know the work at all well, that is going to make you crazy because you're going to sit up and go, whoa, something's missing. Well, something was missing. And one of you also pointed out that this recording with, who is it here? Cédric Tiberghien, yes, and Francois Xavier Roth with Les Siècles on period everything also is missing that bar. So instead of me ranting and raving about how the editors left out a bar or something, because it's what I thought happened, this meant, and when you pointed this out, because I hadn't heard this yet, that in fact, there must have been some sort of addition thing going on that allowed them to chop out that bar. And I told you I would get to the bottom of it by getting a hold of this, the Bärenreiter Urtext edition of the Ravel Concerto, which has a complete Revisionsbericht at the end here. And there it is. It's very revisions and very bericht. There's 7 billion sources they're using because this piece was a mess. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And maybe this would tell us where the hell that bar got to. And it does. Thank God for informed, enlightened musicology. It tells us exactly where it got to. And it doesn't tell us that it's okay to leave that bar out. Fortunately, the actual text, as printed right here at the very end, there it is, the last page, has all chunkuckas. They're all in there, every single one of them. You'll also notice that the last bar after the piano hits da-da-da-da-da-bottom has a fortissimo tam-tam crash, which you never hear, by the way, almost never. Some performances you hear something vaguely swooshy in the back there, but you really ought to go da-da-da-da-da-da, crash, thump. You never hear that. But that aside, that bar is there, and we even have a picture as to what happened to that bar. Here it is. Now, you know that this piece was written for the one-armed pianist Paul Wittgenstein, and Wittgenstein, right here, had a copy of the piano score where he's crossed out that bar. That's one of the chunkuckas right there, the chunkucka. That one got erased. Son of a bitch. But then in the margin, there's a little note here. And the little note says, this measure remains as found in the printed version. So he changed his mind. He put it back. This sort of gives us a clue as to the whole history of the work. The bottom line is this. Wittgenstein commissioned the work, and he had exclusive use of it for a bunch of years. Around 1930, 31, somewhere in there, is when he got his paws on it. The autographed manuscript, which is in the Library of Congress, is not complete. It's missing the big piano cadenza at the end. Some parts of the piece haven't been fully worked out. By the time Ravel had his copyist zhuzh it up and send it over to Wittgenstein to work on, he had not finished actually working out the whole piece. Now, Ravel and Wittgenstein hated each other, as it turned out. Well, Wittgenstein didn't so much hate Ravel as Ravel hated Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein messed up the piece. He rewrote it, he changed it, he cut it, he added a second cadenza for himself. He did all kinds of crap, which drove Ravel insane. But because Wittgenstein had exclusive use of the work until 1937, which was the year Ravel died, by the way, or thereabouts, Ravel couldn't do very much about it. So there were two versions of the work circulating. There was the Wittgenstein version, which reflected an earlier, not quite complete version of the work that was missing that bar. Yes. And then there was Ravel's version, the actual version, the version that was published, which included the final bar. And everything after that included the final bar. And everyone always used the final bar. And even Wittgenstein put back the final bar for all the crap that he imposed on this piece. And he did quite a bit. He decided ultimately that, at least as far as the end goes, because he's not playing then anyway, he had to respect Ravel's final wishes. And he played the work until the 1950s in his own version, not in Ravel's published version, because he had his own proprietary score and parts that he was working from 1930-something. And Ravel continued to tinker with it. The only pianist, well, the pianist wasn't the only pianist, but subsequently, the pianist who had Ravel's sanction to perform the work more than any other was Jacques Favier, Poulenc's friend, his buddy. And he played it and learned it from Ravel, actually. And his recording can be heard here in the Charles Munch Warner box. I believe it's from 1942. They recorded the piece, which was 5 years after Ravel died. And of course, it has all of the correct. It's all where it's supposed to be. Everything is as it should be in that particular recording, as in all subsequent recordings. It's only now, in 2020-something, where people are considering it okay, for reasons I don't understand, to go back to a preliminary version of the score, which does conform to the incomplete autograph, I grant them that, and chop out that bar, which is just unbelievably stupid. It's stupid because A, it doesn't reflect Ravel's final thoughts. B, it adds nothing to our piece, to the piece, other than to make it annoying, where it was perfectly fine before. And third, and here's the part that really gets me, is that they do this without telling us that they're doing it, without mentioning why they're doing it, without giving us any justification. Although I have to confess, I haven't looked at the notes of this one yet. I think, actually, maybe I did. I don't remember. Enchantments and variations. Yeah, actually, this one doesn't either. Let me see. I'm looking at this now. I did look at the notes, as I recall. And it seems to be left hand, bloopity, bloopity, bloop, concerto in G. There's Wittgenstein. Yes, there we go. Yes, they don't actually tell us. They don't actually tell us which version they're using, because there is no other version. There is no other version. Let's be clear. There is Wittgenstein's version, which nobody plays because it's a bastardization of the score, apparently. But there is only what Durand published in 1937 that we can say clearly represents Ravel's ultimate intentions as to what the work should do. And anybody who does anything else is just BSing us. And Tarot did it, and this guy does it, Tiberghien, and they do it. And Francois Xavier Roth, they all do this without a word of justification or explanation. So they succeeded in arousing my ire, and maybe yours too, and annoying us. But they did not succeed in giving us a fully realized, attractive, and respectful version of Ravel's Piano Concerto for the Left Hand, which ought to be sort of the basic point of any performance, should it not? But I do want to thank the folk at Bärenreiter for making this extremely clear, because the sources, I must say, the sources for this concerto are a bit of a mess. There's the incomplete autograph, then there is the autograph score for piano, two pianos. One piano playing the orchestral part, the other doing the solo part. And the autograph of that was not available to these people. It's in private hands. It's in a private collection, which ought to be illegal, for heaven's sake. It was owned by Ravel's brother or something. But there was a copyist version of that, and that Wittgenstein had, by the way. And some of these things were used as sources for Wittgenstein's own sources, which don't really tell us anything useful about what Ravel's ultimate intentions were. And then there's the usual stuff, the copyist manuscript and the corrected thing and the pseudo-published thing and the alternate thing and the extra thing, all the things that these people use to put together what in God's name Ravel meant when he wrote this piece. This Bärenreiter score is quite handy to have, by the way. And they do give you an appendix here, by the way, with alternate readings that can amend or substitute readings printed in the main text. This involves both the orchestral and the piano parts, and it does not include leaving out the extra chung-ka-chung-ka-chung thing at the end. That you can't leave out. So, the fact that these people do is simply a gimmick, a worthless gimmick. But that, my friends, is the answer. So keep on listening. Thanks for joining me. Oh my goodness, the cat just fell down the stairs. Thanks for joining me. Take care.